Hey guys, this is Prateek from ASUS Phone, and before I start this video, I want to ask you guys a couple of questions. So, which phone do you think of when I say the best camera phone in the segment, in the entire market to be honest? The upcoming Google Pixel phones or the latest iPhone maybe, right? Okay, now which phone do you think of for someone who likes to live on the bleeding edge of tech? Samsung's upcoming Galaxy Fold 2 maybe? Now which phone do you think of when I say the best gaming smartphone? See, if you had asked me this question up until a week ago, I would have pretty much said any Snapdragon 865 toting phone, because let's be honest here, you don't really need anything more to push Android games to their limits. But if you ask me today, then my answer would be undoubtedly the ASUS ROG Phone 3, which in my opinion is not just the best gaming phone, but also a fantastic regular phone. Here's why. But guys, before we get on with the video, make sure to hit the bell icon and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already, so that you don't miss out on any quality tech content that we put out. Now that you have done that, let's get on with the full review of the ASUS ROG Phone 3. Now we've come a long way since the original ROG Phone 1, but one look at the ROG Phone 3 will give you flashbacks of the phone that started it all. Now don't get me wrong, ASUS has improved the design of its ROG phones year after year, and the latest entrant is undoubtedly better looking as compared to the OG model. Well, when I say better looking, I mean they've toned down the gamery looks by a notch, and quite frankly that has done a lot of favors to the ROG Phone 3's aesthetics. But despite not having aggressive edgy outlines, exposed copper vents or orange highlights for its stereo speakers, the ROG Phone 3 still looks much like a mobile battle station. The smartphone comes with dramatic etching on its back with an exposed air vent that supposedly helps cool the handset's internals. Part of the back is even transparent, which gives a peek into the phone's aerodynamic system, and the bit that's visible actually is the phone's heat sink, which by the way is 6 times larger than what the company used on the ROG Phone 2. Now I'll talk more about whether it does the phone's temperatures any favors in the performance section, but what I will say is that it looks darn cool. But certainly not as cool as the company's glowing RGB logo at the back, which I'm sure you guys must have picked up on by now. Now, as someone who recently built a gaming PC, I'm a huge proponent for RGB, but it needs to be done tastefully, and that's exactly what you get with the ROG Phone 3. You can choose from 4 different lighting patterns, a gazillion different colors and different scenarios too, so if you want to have the logo light up when your phone screen is off, or when it's on, or when you're playing a game, you can do all of that using the phone's Armory Crate app. What's even better, you can have the RGB light up whenever you receive a phone call or a notification from a select app. That's right, you can color code notifications for up to 30 different apps, so if you thought that this was just for show, think again. Now unfortunately, not all design changes are good, and unlike its predecessors, the ROG Phone 3 does not come with a headphone jack. Now this phone is Hi-Res certified though, so that's something, and the aero cooler accessory that you can buy separately and attach to the phone, that does come with a 3.5mm output, but I would have liked to see one on the phone itself. Not all is lost, as much like the ROG Phone 1 and 2, the ROG Phone 3 also gets a dual USB Type-C port on its left hand side, out of which you can use one port to plug in the charger or to connect a pair of Type-C earphones. Now this way you can use the port at the bottom to charge the phone and the one on the left to connect earphones, or vice versa. And since we are on the topic of audio, I should tell you that the ROG Phone 3 comes with quite possibly the loudest stereo speakers on any phone. The speakers sound fantastic too, and there's minimal distortion even at the highest volume, so no complaints here. Now moving on though, the phone gets a power button and volume rockers on its right hand side, and you also get Air Triggers 3, which are the company's latest innovation in shoulder buttons. I'll talk more about these in the performance section, but rest assured I thoroughly enjoyed using the buttons to play Call of Duty. Last but certainly not the least, there's a dual SIM tray positioned towards the top left of the phone, along with an LED notification light on the top bezel. On the off chance the glowing logo is not enough for you. Unfortunately, the ROG Phone 3 doesn't come with expandable storage, which is weird considering the audience this phone is targeted towards. What's not weird is how heavy this phone is, and at 240 grams, I was expecting something like this, to be honest. I mean, there's a 6000 mAh battery inside, along with all the fancy tech I mentioned a while ago, and it's made entirety using glass, so yeah, don't drop this phone on your face at night, you'll probably end up with a concussion. Also, don't try to use this phone with one hand. I mean, it comes with a fancy case and Gorilla Glass version 3 on the back and version 5 on the front, but still, just just handle it with care. Thankfully, despite its heft, the weight distribution is fantastic on the phone, and it even comes with excellent haptics, so you love typing long messages or drafting emails on the ROG Phone 3. And seeing how this phone comes with an exposed vent at the back, it shouldn't be surprising that there's no IP certification here, and the device doesn't support wireless charging either. Now, one of the biggest reasons why the ROG Phone 1 was such a big success was because it was one of the first phones to come with a 90Hz display. Now, the year after, the company one-upped themselves and offered a 120Hz display with the ROG Phone 2. And with the ROG Phone 3, believe it or not, you're going to get something even better because this phone comes with a 144Hz AMOLED display. And that's not all, I have more numbers for you too. So the display measures in at 6.59 inches, is Widevine L1 certified, and even comes with 10-bit HDR certification. The peak brightness is 650 nits, which is plenty bright for outdoor usage, and the touch sampling rate is even higher from last year's model at 270 Hz, making the ROG Phone 3 screen the most responsive in the market yet, and it really shows. The slightest touch on the phone's display results in an instantaneous response, so be it watching shows in HDR from Netflix or playing fast-paced action shooters like Call of Duty Mobile, the smartphone's display will not disappoint you in any aspect. Making the display stand out even more, ASUS has gone with the trusty old bezels to house the camera and the sensor, so you won't find any notch here, and I personally like it a lot. Also, folks at XD have somehow managed to unlock 160Hz refresh rate on the phone too, so if 140Hz was too plebeian for you, you can dial it up further a notch. Oh, and you also get a fantastic always-on display with the phone, which is somewhat customizable too, and you can choose from a bunch of different clock faces to spruce up your phone's lock screen when it's locked. Honestly, the only downside that I've noticed of the ROG Phone 3's display is that when you use it in a dark room, say when all the lights are turned off in your room and you're using the phone, the blacks somewhat appear brown and there's a noticeable color shift there. But honestly, even that didn't take away too much from my media consumption experience when using the ROG Phone 3, and the display you get with this phone is truly remarkable. The ROG Phone 3 comes with facial recognition and an in-display fingerprint sensor, both of which work perfectly well during my testing. In fact, the phone's facial unlock is among the quickest I've seen, and it even managed to unlock my face when I had a mask on, which in hindsight is perhaps not a good thing. Regardless, the phone didn't unlock when I had my eyes closed or when my face was at an angle from the front-facing camera. The fingerprint sensor is top-notch too, so no complaints here either. Now, as for the sensors, the ROG Phone 3 comes with all the necessary sensors, including an ambient light sensor, a gyroscope, and even an electronic compass, which gives you insights on your orientation or which way you're facing when you're using apps like Google Maps. Now, the ASUS ROG Phone 3 is one of the world's first smartphones to come with Snapdragon 865 Plus processor, which, if you don't know, offers a 10% upgrade over the Snapdragon 865 based platforms that most of the current gen flagships use. Now, this phone comes with 8GB of LPDDR5 memory and 128GB of UFS 3.1 storage, but you can also opt for a 12GB to 56GB variant of this smartphone. Now, make no mistake, this is the fastest Android smartphone that money can buy right now. It could be because of the high touch sampling rate of the display, whatever. The fact remains that this is the fastest Android smartphone that I've ever used. So it shouldn't come as a surprise that the ROG Phone 3 benches much higher compared to the competition too. In fact, the scores for all the benchmarks including Antutu, Androbench and Geekbench will be on your screens right now, and these are quite possibly the highest I've ever seen any smartphone bench. Now, it goes without saying that the phone is perfectly capable of playing your favorite games at the maximum possible settings too. PUBG runs smoothly without any hiccups on HDR and Extreme, and Call of Duty also maxes out at very high and max, and the gameplay was fantastic even when I had screen recording running in the background. Now, the gaming experience on the smartphone is second to none too, and I think this is a great phone for anyone wanting to play games like Call of Duty or PUBG with a 4-finger claw grip. See, I've tried using that grip, but it's just not a very comfortable approach for me. I can't really have all 4 of my fingers on the display, and my pointers just don't function that way. So instead of that, the shoulder triggers on the ROG Phone 3 are actually they help bridge the gap, I should say, because instead of having all 4 fingers on the display itself, I can have 2 resting on the shoulder buttons, and this is just a more comfortable way for me to game because I have been gaming on consoles for all my life, so I have been using trigger buttons on PlayStation 3 or PlayStation 4's DualShock controllers, so this actually feels very natural to me. Now that way I was able to mimic the grip, and it legitimately improved my in-game performance, especially in Call of Duty Mobile, where I had mapped the left trigger for hip fire and the right trigger for ADS. And don't worry, there's no delay or latency that I noticed when pressing the trigger button, and the game instantly responded to it. You can even map two actions to one trigger and use sliding motion instead of a tap to toggle as in-game action, but for my usage I didn't find those very helpful. What I did appreciate though was that I could change the sensitivity of the triggers and even toggle an option to rest my fingers on the button without triggering them. All of this, by the way, can be done by going into the Armory Crate app and then heading over to the air trigger section. Now you must be wondering, geez, all this horsepower must surely affect the thermals, and you'd be right. But thankfully ASUS thought of that, and they've employed the ROG Phone 3 with their GameCool 3 system, which actually comes with a graphite film just above the display and a dedicated heatsink as well. Unfortunately, it just doesn't work, and the ROG Phone 3 can get really hot after 40 to 45 minutes of gaming, or if you're charging it. It hasn't affected the performance yet, but regardless, the phone should not be getting this hot, so I hope a software update addresses this in the future. Now ROG phones, even the ones launched before this, always offered excellent performance, but they always struggled to deliver good cameras. So can the ROG Phone 3 actually change that? Well, before I talk about that, here are the camera specs. So the ROG Phone 3 comes with a triple camera setup at the back, comprising a 64 megapixel Sony IMX686 sensor, which works alongside a 13 megapixel wide angle lens and a 5 megapixel macro sensor. Now for selfies, the smartphone gets a 24 megapixel front facing camera. Now I've been clicking photos with the ASUS ROG Phone 3 for quite some time now, and I've noticed two things. Firstly, the camera setup is a huge step up over its predecessors, and the ROG Phone 3 is actually pretty darn good at clicking photos. Now secondly, the phone somewhat subdues the colors in a shot and makes the hues appear a little flat. Let's start with this wide shot of my garden, and here you'll notice that while there are plenty of details in the bushes or the corners of the image, the greens in the leaves and the pink in the flower appear a tad duller. Now turning on the AI scene recognition doesn't do the photos any favor, mind you. Now I'm not saying that the shot looks bad, but rather I'm just pointing out what the cameras are doing here. Same goes for the close-up of the red tulips or the pink flowers. The details are aplenty and the image has been exposed really well too, but the phone is underplaying the red and the pink shades in the photos. Another example of the same is if you look at the photo of our pet, and here you'll notice that his fur and the collar appears a little washed out. However, you could literally zoom in anywhere and you'll find the photo is as crisp as it gets. The strands of his fur have excellent definition and his eyes look gorgeous too. Here's another photo of him being a derp, and his snout is so detailed that I wouldn't blame you if you wanted to boop his nose. I know I have done that a lot of times already. So as far as the daylight shots are concerned, the ROG Phone 3 can take some exceptional photos, albeit the phone could have processed colors better. The only issue I noticed was that the phone struggled to expose bright hues properly. Now case in point, this shot of my Nerf gun, which always came out overexposed, and you can barely make out the details on the orange part of the gun. Coming to the wide angle lens, it's not completely unusable, but it does struggle to capture the details in the corner properly. That being said, I am glad that there is no color temperature disparity when switching from the wide angle to the standard lens. Same goes for the macro sensor, which isn't a class apart, but again, it does the job. Now as for selfies, the ROG Phone 3's 24 megapixel selfie camera is really good, but I wish it wouldn't smoothen out my skin tone so much. Now even with all the beautification features disabled, you can tell that the smartphone has brushed over the details on my cheeks. Other than that though, the selfies look aesthetically pleasing, have good details, and even the cutout for portrait shots is neat and tidy. Low light selfies are quite serviceable too, thanks to the phone's white flash throw, which lit up my face adequately. Correspondingly, you will be able to get away with an Instagram worthy selfie even at night. Same goes for the low light photos from the rear camera, and while the standard low light shot is nothing to write home about, the one clicked with the night mode is a class apart. Not only will you get stellar details in the shot, case in point the leaves of the trees adjacent to my gate, but the smartphone also manages to keep instances of lens flaring under control too. Coming to the videos, the ASUS ROG Phone 3 can shoot a variety of different clips across different resolutions and frame rates, including 1080p and 4K videos at 60 fps and even 4K slow-mo videos at 120 fps. And if that's too plebeian for you, then much like the Mi 10 Pro, this smartphone can also record 8K videos at 30 FPS. But for the purpose of this review, I have stuck to 1080p 30 FPS clips because that nets the most stability. Here is a sample. So as you can probably tell, the 1080p 30 FPS clip from the ASUS ROG Phone 3 is fantastic, and the video exhibits excellent stability and the colors aren't all over the place either. Plus the audio captured by the built-in microphone is top-notch too, so rest assured you will find the ROG Phone 3 to not just be a good gaming phone but a good camera phone too. The ROG Phone 3 comes with a custom skin of ROG UI on top of Android 10. Now, I'm not even sure if I should call it a custom skin because this is extremely close to stock and the UI on this phone comes with no ads or bloatware. But furthermore, there aren't a lot of added utilities here either, and barring the staple Android features like a system-wide dark mode, screen-on gestures like a 3-finger screenshot and navigational gestures, you don't get much here. I mean, there is a built-in theme store, but the selection there is tragic, so I didn't find much use for that. But you can run 2 instances of WhatsApp or Facebook on the phone, which is pretty neat, and the device also comes with a built-in screen recorder and call recorder too. Now, I really like the approach taken by ASUS here, and I've always been a fan of custom skins that don't stray too far away from stock Android, so if you're like me, you're going to love the UI on the ROG Phone 3. Now, as for the battery life, the ASUS ROG Phone 3 ships with a 6000 mAh battery, which comfortably saw me through the end of a heavy workday, and that was with the refresh rate set to 144Hz. Now, I was consistently getting 6 hours of screen on time with the phone, and I'm sure you can squeeze out even more should you reduce the refresh rate. Now, as for the bundled charger, the smartphone gets a 30-watt brick, which might seem like less, but ASUS has a pretty good logic behind it. See, the batteries in our phones need a separator between the anode and the cathode for safety reasons, and the faster a phone's charging speed is, the thicker that separator is going to be. Now, simply put, the faster the phone's charging speed, the less capacious the battery is going to be. So, in order to put a 6000 mAh battery inside the ROG Phone 3, the company had to opt for 30-watt wired charging. Now, the only downside to this is that given its price point, it's a little disappointing that this phone does not come with support for wireless charging. Now, in terms of connectivity, the ROG Phone 3 offered me excellent download speeds on my Airtel postpaid connection. In fact, the speeds were noticeably better than what I got with my SIM in the OnePlus 8. Now, call quality was fantastic too, and I never faced any call drops on the phone, which is great. So the ASUS ROG Phone 3 cost Rs 50,000 for the 8GB 128GB variant I reviewed, and I know a lot of you would be thinking that this phone is overpriced, so let me set the record straight right now. It's not. See, I have used almost every 865 based smartphone out there, and for me, performance always comes first. I evaluate over a phone's cameras, displays, you name it, and this is the fastest Android smartphone that money can buy. Heck, this is the best gaming smartphone that money can buy, and I can't even emphasize how genuinely good the air triggers are on this smartphone. And let's not forget that this phone also comes with the world's snappiest display, and the cameras are actually very good this time around too. But I know what you're all thinking. The Mi 10 or the OnePlus 8 Pro are about as powerful as the ROG Phone 3, and with the 8 Pro you're actually going to get IP rating and wireless charging too. See, this is the problem with gaming phones. This is the world's fastest Android smartphone in my hand, but it doesn't matter if this phone is also going to be used to play PUBG at HDR in extreme. Heck, you could do that on a 855 plus based phone. So all this hardware that you get with the ASUS ROG Phone 3, it's not being used properly. See, to justify the purchase for a gaming phone, first and foremost you need games, exclusives, or even if not exclusive, then something that can run better on this than something compared to like this. See, what I'm trying to tell you is that the ASUS ROG Phone 3 is a fantastic smartphone and I wholeheartedly recommend it. But if you buy the OnePlus 8 Pro over it, then who would blame you? I surely wouldn't. But guys, that wraps up my full review of the ASUS ROG Phone 3. Do let me know in the comments below if you would buy the ROG Phone 3 over something like the Mi 10 or the OnePlus 8 Pro. Why and why not? Do let me know that in the comments below. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, do give us a big thumbs up and share it with your friends. Until next time, this is Prateek from Mr. Phone signing off.